Guys, welcome to this edition of the newsletter. As you can see in the write-up, we're talking to Tamir Sacks from PayCurve. He and his team have come up with a really awesome FinTech solution that drives employee financial well-being. Tamir, welcome, and thank you for making yourself available today. Maybe just as a start, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Shoana. I really appreciate the time, and I'm very excited to be presenting to you today. So thank you. So I started off my career back in the day at Deloitte. I worked at Deloitte South Africa for about 3 years. I then moved with Deloitte to America. I was based in Connecticut for a year, and then decided to come back and pursue a corporate career. And my corporate career focused predominantly on consumer finance solutions. So I have an in-depth understanding of what's happening on the ground and the struggles that the vast majority of South Africans are under. And then 2019, I actually came across a study that was written by Harvard, and it highlighted the vast benefits of a FinTech liquidity solution that had the ability to considerably reduce financial stress just by providing liquidity to employees during the course of the month. And I thought to myself, given my background, my understanding of what's happening on the ground, I thought to myself, this is an absolute unbelievable opportunity for South Africa, and this must be implemented within South Africa. So that's what ultimately gave rise to the PayCurve concept.
That sounds amazing. Now, tell me, when you were thinking about all of this, what is the problem that you were solving for the people of South Africa?
So the problem is simple. It is financial stress, because financial stress is the root cause to so much anxiety, panic attacks, the inability to see a month through. Because what happens in South Africa is that South Africans live paycheck to paycheck. They don't have savings. There's a stat actually that 8 out of 10 South Africans are currently struggling to make ends meet. And this all gives rise to financial stress. And at PayCurve, our mission is to eliminate financial stress.
That sounds good. So you mentioned 8 out of 10. Is that how indebted our nation is, or is there a different statistic that goes with that?
Unfortunately, that is a statistic that we picked up when we did an extensive survey back in July this year. We found that 80% of South Africans are currently supplementing their income with short-term credit. That's just to see the month through. Yeah.
Sure.
It's a real problem at the moment. And interesting, out of from the survey, one of a startling stat was that 11% of South Africans are contributing more than 50% of their salary just to meet the installments in relation to these short-term credit loans that they've been taking and supplementing their income with.
Sheesh, that's a scary statistic, Tamir. So what is PayCurve? How does it work?
So PayCurve is a very simple solution. And Shoana, have you ever got to the 19th of the month and you simply have too much month for money left?
Yeah, I think we all have.
That is what PayCurve looks to solve. PayCurve is a FinTech solution that gives employees on-demand access to a percentage of their salary that they've already earned during the course of the month. So what happens is you get paid a monthly salary. So employees need to wait 31 days before they receive their salary. But what happens in most instances, in most cases, is that we use almost all of our salary within the first week of receiving it. Yeah. But there's still another 23 odd days, call it, 3 weeks till the end of the month, and unforeseen expenses arise. And unfortunately, up until now, employees have been so reliant on payday loans and short-term credit. And I'm not bashing that industry. I think it's very important to understand that there is a a place for short-term credit, and it's a massive contributor to the South African economy and GDP growth. But unfortunately, most often, short-term credit is very, very expensive and mismatched in relation to the consumer's needs. So, for example, someone needs 1,000 Rand, so they phone the agent and they get sold 10,000 Rand. That's what I'm referring to when I'm talking about mismatched credit. So what PayCurve does is it simply provides an affordable alternative capital solution. So employees can use their own money during the course of the month, as opposed to having to be reliant on credit.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. But I've had the privilege of reading a previous publication that you put out through the research that you had, and you made mention of safeguarding the employees, because if I've got access to all of my salary up front, then come the end of the month, I might not have enough to meet my financial obligations. So how does PayCurve solve for that?
So it's a fantastic question. And I think what we need to go back to is, why was PayCurve born? Why did PayCurve come about? And that was to eliminate financial stress.
Yeah.
So everything that we do centers around driving financial health into an organization, empowering employees, providing financial support. So therefore, we've taken all of those considerations into account. Now, how we safeguard an employee is we take multiple data points into consideration, and we make sure that each employee is unique. So we take all these data points in relation to each unique employee. We run an algorithm in the background, and we give the employee access to a responsible percentage of their salary. So we don't make the whole salary that they've earned during the course of the month available. We only make a small portion that is responsible available to them, ultimately doing the thinking on behalf of the employee and allowing them to support themselves.
Okay, so all of your years at Deloitte and working with all of those numbers and analytics has really paid off. Tamir, this seems quite simple, right? Why hasn't a solution like this been implemented before?
So if you think about it from an employer's perspective, an employer doesn't necessarily want to change the way they pay their employees.
Yeah.
Majority of employers pay a monthly salary, and it makes sense. There is administration come the end of the month. There is cash flow come the end of the month. And there is a cost associated with that. Now, if employers had to change up their profile and pay employees, let's say weekly, it'll change that whole ecosystem. You would need the cash flow on hand. You would need to, you'd have a finance cost as a result of the cash flow. You'd need to manage the cash flow. You'd have extra admin, and it's cumbersome and it's administratively intensive. So there's a reason that employees haven't been paid more frequently. Now, the rest of the world, if you look at the likes of America, the UK, and Australia, those employers, they actually, a concept like PayCurve is actually embedded in those industries or in those geographies. So employers that pay a monthly salary, they partner up with a FinTech solution exactly like PayCurve that allows their employees to access a portion of their earned income during the course of the month. And that allows their employees to be financially supported during the course of the month. Now, this is a first of its kind in South Africa. PayCurve is leading the way when it comes to salary access. So I think that this industry is really going to take off, and it's really going to provide a lot of financial support for a lot of employees out there that are simply living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. Now, having come from an ops background, what is the impact on the employer?
So, as I mentioned, we've taken a lot of the thinking around kind of what's happening from a consumer's perspective. We've got safeguards in place. We run these really smart algorithms, and that's all there to protect the employee at the end of the day. But from an employer's perspective, we've also built our system around the employer. And we know that, I mean, I mentioned it in the previous question as to why hasn't South Africa seen something like this before? It's because it's so administratively intensive to change the profile. So what we do is we provide an HR-friendly, admin-friendly, and most importantly, people-friendly solution. So there is no impact to the employer. We keep things completely simple. And how we do that is we actually integrate our system directly into the employer's payroll system. And that takes away all the administration associated with withdrawals and servicing the employees. So there's no administration, there's no cash flow impact to the employer as well. And most importantly, there's also no cost to the employer. There is a very small cost that's charged to the employee when they withdraw from PayCurve.
What is that cost? Because the cost of credit, as you mentioned, is quite high. So what does this cost the employee?
So the cost to the employee is marginally more expensive than withdrawing from an ATM. So to give you a quick example, if an employee had to go and withdraw 500 Rand from the ATM, it would cost about 18 Rand. If an employee had to go and withdraw 500 Rand from their PayCurve account, it would cost 28 Rand. So it's about 10 Rand more expensive than withdrawing from an ATM. But if you compare that to a regulated credit product, so if an employee had to go to a regulated credit provider and get 500 Rand, it would cost about 165 Rand in fees. So we're talking about 80 to 90% cheaper than current market options.
Oh, wow. That is really a saving. Now, when we spoke about agents or employees having to qualify for this through the algorithms that you run, what happens to employees who don't necessarily qualify or have any disposable income in order to do a drawdown like this?
So what happens with those employees is when the employee logs onto the system, our system quickly runs the algorithms and it quickly assesses the debt to salary level. And we would be able to identify employees that are over indebted. Now, with those employees that are over indebted, we want to assist them as well, because once again, our core principle is to eliminate financial stress. So those employees that are over indebted, they have immense levels of, very high levels of financial stress. So what we offer those employees at the time is we offer them a debt rehabilitation product where we look to completely eliminate debt from their lives. So we would like to, over a period of time, actually go down a road of rehabilitating those employees so that they can get back on their feet, they can be more productive at work, and they can just live healthier, happier lives.
Wow, that truly does sound like an amazing offering that you have going there. It's a small fee to the employer, to the employee. Yes, yeah. There's not much for me to do as an employer if I were considering this as an option. So what are the benefits to the employer? Because yes, there's no cost, there's no work for me to do as an employer, but what's the benefit to me of having PayCurve implemented in my organization?
So from an employer's perspective, it's the unique opportunity to offer an employee wellness program to your workforce at absolutely no cost. So that's first and foremost. But there are unbelievable ancillary benefits associated with offering PayCurve to your workforce. And that is simply enhanced productivity, because employees that feel financially supported are much more productive, they're much more engaged. There is less absenteeism, and there's also less job hopping, which ultimately will impact your bottom line. Back to that Harvard study. One of the key metrics was that there was a 19% reduction in staff turnover levels.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, that's 1/5 reduction in staff turnover levels by offering a solution that comes at no cost to an employer and provides unbelievable support for the employees.
Sure. That does sound phenomenal. And I think given today's circumstance and where we are as a South African GBS industry, a 19% reduction in churn would definitely support us in terms of maintaining staff and maintaining skills within the industry. Now, is that all that I get as an employer? Is the reduction in staff turnover, better absenteeism percentages, I suppose, as well?
So from an employer's perspective, you also get unique insight into your workforce. We have an employer portal whereby you would be able to understand the breakdown of your workforce according to buckets as to what level is over indebted, what level is financially healthy. And off the back of that information, we also have financial literacy courses that can be offered to your employees. So you can enhance the basic financial fundamentals of your workforce so that they can take control of their financial affairs in a way that they haven't been able to do up until now. So ultimately, it leads just to a much more happy, healthy working environment.
Okay, so that's the catch. You're going to charge me for the financial literacy.
No, there's no cost associated with anything from the employer's perspective. The financial literacy courses, that's a supportive additional product or offering that's embedded into PayCurve, and there's no cost associated with that as well. That's actually, there's no cost whatsoever. There's no cost to the employer, and there's no cost to the employees who enroll for these courses. We cover the fundamentals of financial literacy, such as understanding debt. What is good debt? What is bad debt? How does interest work? We also we have a course on money management, how to build a budget, what's essential spend, what's non-essential spend. And our third course covers, it's a guide to savings. So employees that do have the ability to save during the course of the month, how do they make their money work for them? Now, those courses are offered to your entire workforce for free. And there's a little quiz at the end, and it really covers the basics, the fundamentals that need to be in place in order to take charge of your financial life. So that is a solution that is free to employers and free to employees.
And to your earlier point, it's not just taking control of your financial health, it's also taking care of your mental health. So how long does a solution like this take to implement, to get it up and running in an organization?
So on average, it takes 3 weeks. If we have an integration in place, which chances are we do because we are integrated into most South African payroll providers, it can take as short as 2 weeks. If we don't, then it will take between 3 and 4 weeks. But ultimately, on average, I would say 3 weeks.
Wow, that is super amazing. So how do we get employers to get in contact with you?
You can email me directly on at my email address, which is Tamir, Tamir, at paycurve.co.za. Alternatively, you can visit our website, www.paycurve.co.za, or you can give me a call on 010-140-3428.
Fantastic. Now, last question. You spoke about integration. Am I expected to have a development team ready to integrate with your system? How do we get that working?
Once again, absolutely no cost to the employer, no administration. You as an employer will tell me that I use, let's say, Sage as my payroll system. Chances are I've already got an integration with the provider already, in which case it's a simple kind of switch off a button. But if we don't have an integration, then my team will take care. All you need to do as an employer is tell me who the payroll provider is, and my team will take care of absolutely everything. And there is no cost to you as the employer.
Wow, Tamir. So no cost to me as an employer for integration. Your team does the work. No cost to have this set up, no cost to have this running for my organization. And it costs my employees literally a ATM withdrawal fee if they want to make use of this. And the benefits are countless in terms of what you've just explained. It really does sound like
100%.
You've catered for the South African market, that your heart and soul has been put into this in terms of being able to rehabilitate South Africans, because debt is a major problem for our country. And I think given the opportunity to, a lot of people would want to live debt-free, or at least have essential debt, like you've explained, the non-essentials and the essentials. So really, thank you to you and your team for coming up with such an innovative idea. And thank you for your time today. I think just taking time out of your diary to explain to us how this works and how it would benefit us and our industry really is important. Thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to engaging even further.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate the time.
An absolute pleasure.